this camera won't fit. My. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel Academia. This is Vaibhav, your own literature freak, and today we're going to be looking at the themes and symbols and tips for answers and other nitty-gritties in Birches by Robert Frost. I don't see any point in dealing. Let's get started. Well, if we talk of the themes of this particular poem by Robert Frost, then there are three most pronounced themes in the poem. They are imagination versus reality, nature, and the importance of limits. Okay, now let's take them one by one. If we talk of the theme of imagination versus reality and then look at the format of the entire poem, format as in the layout of the entire poem, can you guys see that there is a sort of an oscillation going on between imagination and reality? The poem is oscillating from imagination to reality, imagination to reality, imagination to reality. Let me give you the evidence. Let me give you the proof. The poem begins. See, look at the third line. I like to think some boy has been swinging them. This is an imagination, a figment of the imagination of Robert Frost. I like to think some boy has been swinging them. That's what I'm thinking right now. Okay, so it's an imagination, and then it moves on to reality. What is the ice storm, right? The ice storm is there, which came last night, and now the birches are laden with ice and snow, and which is why they are bent. So this is the reality. But then again, it goes back to imagination. What is the imagination? The imagination is of the girls on their hands and knees, right? That is again an imagination, that imagination of Robert Frost, to think that this is what the birches are looking like. They're looking like those girls who are on their hands and knees with their hair over them, right? But then again, it goes back to reality, which is when the truth breaks in. But I was going to say when truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, that is again reality. But then finally, if you're following the book Reverie and look at the second page of the poem, this entire page is full of imagination of the poet. So the poem oscillates from imagination to reality, imagination to reality, imagination to reality, and then again, finally, for the last time, comes to imagination, right? It then stays in the imaginary. And over there, the debate of whether to be in the imaginary world or to be in the real world is sorted. Now let's talk about the debate first. The debate is that whether we should stay in the imaginary world or should we stay in the real world. Because the imaginary world, what's there inside our head, is all very tempting. It's alluring. We want that, right? We need that. It's all desirable. It's desirous. But we can't escape the reality because we are physically present in the reality. We can mentally escape to our imaginary world. If I imagine to be in Hogwarts right now, I can't go physically to Hogwarts. I can mentally be at Hogwarts with Harry Potter, with Professor McGonagall and all, right? But physically, I'll be there in my home place amongst these books, shooting this video. So that is the question. To be in the imaginary world or to be in the real world. But if you look at the end of the poem, that debate is settled over there. With the line, it will be good both going and coming back. That is where the debate is settled. We have carved out a mid path. We are neither in this extremity nor we are in this extremity. We are in the center, right? We will be in the reality, but then we will escape to imagination for a while to take a break amidst nature perhaps, and then we'll come back to shoulder our responsibilities in the reality. So we have taken a middle path. We will neither be completely in imagination nor we will completely be in reality, because we cannot escape reality. We have Earth over here because Earth is the right place for love, and over here only we have the reality. On Earth only we have the reality, right? So we can't escape reality because we don't want to die. No, we want to be alive. But then we can't completely be in imagination as well. Okay, we can't die as well. May no fate willfully misunderstand me, right? So we can't just go up the branches of the birches. We need to come down as well. So we have taken a mid path, a midway. That is, we will neither be completely in imagination nor completely in reality. We will shoulder our responsibilities in reality and then go back to imagination and come back again after taking that much needed break. So that was about the theme of imagination versus reality. So, the real cause of the birches being bent, that is rejected time and again by Robert Frost. The real cause is what? The ice storms. But initially, Robert Frost says that I like to think some boy's been swinging them. And then he says that I would rather prefer some boy swinging them. So that original theory, or rather original fact, that ice storms have bent the birches, that is rebuffed time and again. It is debunked time and again by the imagination, by just the figment of imagination of Robert Frost, that a boy has bent them by swinging them. Okay, and if you look at this particular line, one by one he subdued his father's trees. When we read the word subdued, there is this sense of authority in it, right? A tone of authority in it. This basically is roughly analogous to the fact that imagination has now taken place. It has taken over everything, right? Imagination has overpowered everything, which is why the latter half of the entire poem is all imaginary, right? So that is just a thing that you can mention in your answers to enrich it, and of course it can hold significance as well. Let's move on to the next theme. The next theme is nature. As I told you in the video of Crossing the Bar, when we were doing the themes, etc., a theme is never the moral of the literary work, okay, of the poem or story or drama. The theme is basically the ground on which the entire work has been done. And what is the ground over here? Nature. The title itself is natural. Birches. Birches are an element of nature, aren't they? Right? So when we think of birches, when we think of things like the sun's warmth and ice and leaves and branches and the woodland, the pathless wood, cobweb, all of it is nothing but nature, right? So nature has been, and listen, Robert Frost seems to have a close, in fact, very close affinity with nature. Many of his poems are always centric around nature as well. For example, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, right? Or The Road Less Traveled By. All these, sorry, The Road Not Taken. I'm sorry, The Road Not Taken. Both of these poems, including Birches, they revolve around nature. So Robert Frost was a very, very romantic and, should I say, affiliated to nature sort of a poet, right? Just like William Wordsworth, just like John Keats, just like H.W. Longfellow. These people found romance in nature, and so did Robert Frost. As simple and straight as that. So, yeah, nature. And then we have the importance of limits. Now see, throughout the poem, the limits of reality have been laid emphasis on, right? Reality is there, it is unavoidable. We must have often heard people say that everything in limit is good. Nothing beyond limit is good. Everything in excess is harmful. You drink water in excess, harmful. You breathe in excess, harmful. You stop breathing in excess, harmful. You study in excess, again harmful. You gain excess of knowledge, harmful. You can you look at the mobile phones for a lot of time without limit, harmful. You love without limit, that is also harmful. So limits are important, and in this particular poem, Robert Frost has laid special emphasis to limits. How? See, the birches are trees that have roots and they are grounded to the earth, right? They are grounded to the earth and they tend to extend quite tall. They tend to extend quite tall. However, they do not leave the ground. They do not leave the limit that they need to be grounded. They need to have their roots inside, right? So the birches, they are tall, but still they are grounded, which is why the imposition of limits is important. And if you look at it carefully, the imposition of limit is responsible and important by according to Robert Frost, both in the imaginary world and in the real world. How? See, in the imaginary world, we can't stay there for a long period of time, right? Because we need to come back and shoulder our responsibilities. So there is a limit for time over there in the imaginary world. So again, a limit is there. We can't be in the real world for a long period of time because again a limit is there. What limit? That if we are always in the real world grinding till eternity, we will get that burnout. We'll be burnt out. Okay, we'll be exhausted by the daily grind of life. So there is a limit in the real world also, that when you reach that limit, you go to the imaginary world, take a break, then be in the limit of the imaginary world and then come back and shoulder your responsibilities. That is an important point. In fact, a lesson for us as youngsters to learn to value and to, stick to it throughout life. We need to have limits. Everything in limit is good. Nothing beyond limit is good. It's harmful. It's dangerous. It's debilitating. Okay. No love without, beyond limits. No studying beyond limits. No play beyond limits. Everything within limits. Seema mein rehkar. That is what my mother says. So yeah, that is there, limits. So we've discussed nature, we've discussed imagination versus reality, we've discussed limits. There we go. You have the themes in front of you. All you need to do is, whenever you'll be asked the question about the themes of the poem, is elaborate along these 3 points by taking instances from the poem itself. Take evidences from the poem. Like I always say, get a point, which is, let's say, for instance, imagination versus reality. Elaborate by taking examples from the text, right? Take evidences from the text. Okay, that I have this line of argument, and my line of argument is that imagination versus reality is a theme of the poem Birches. Now, what are the evidences? Over here, the evidences are in the poem, and I can back them by using quotations from the poem. Okay, so quotations, lift up certain lines, lift up small phrases. Don't start to pick up lines, 3 or 4 in number. You may or may not mess up, you never know. But if you pick up small phrases, like for example, earth is the right place for love. May no fate willfully misunderstand me. Like girls on hands and knees. Okay, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. Across the lines of straighter darker trees. These are certain phrases that I have taken from the poem. I haven't taken 3-4 lines at a stretch because I know I'll mess up. The thing is, quotation is anything that you take up from the text, no matter how small or large it is, right? Even a word like willfully misunderstand, these 2 words combined together can become a quotation. So use them to enrich your answers. And then of course cross-references have to be there, to which I will come in a while after discussing symbols and titles. Now see, there are varied symbols in this particular piece of poem by Robert Frost. And in order for you to enrich your answers and add weightage and substance to it, you need to understand and mention the substances, which is basically symbols, right? We'll begin from the basic. White birches and black birches. Okay, both kinds of birches are there in this entire woodland that we're talking of. There are white birches, there are black birches. The white birches are symbolic of heavenly aspirations, of purity, and by extension, the imaginary world. Those are white birches. Black birches are symbolic of the grind of daily life, the considerations, life's considerations, right? The grind, the hustle of adulthood. And by the way, adulting, most people try to romanticize adulting, and of course it is good, but there are dark sides to adulting as well. There just are dark sides to adulting. And I can identify with Robert Frost quite well because I am now in the phase of adulting, and so probably you will also be a year later when you will step out into the real world. Then you will understand that how true Robert Frost's Birches is, because there is this grind of adulthood, which basically over here is symbolized by our black birches, right? So white birches and black birches are there, and they are a reference to heavenly aspirations and the grind of adulthood, respectively. Then we come to swinging. Now, swinging over here is symbolic of wavering between reality and imagination, right? The boy, or rather the poet, likes to climb black branches up a snow white trunk. Swing those birches by climbing black branches up a snow white trunk. I told you, black branches are what? Black branches is the reality, and the white branch is heavenly aspiration and imagination. So when we go from black branch to the white branch, we are basically going from reality to imagination, mentally, not physically. We're not going to die. Okay, we're coming back. So we are going from reality to imagination, and that is how we are swinging and wavering and oscillating between reality and imagination, right? Then pathless wood is symbolic of life without direction. When we don't know where to go, we don't have a path to follow, we don't have anybody to guide us, we don't know what to do next, when there is all absurdity and ambiguity beyond, we don't know what to do, then we just take a break. That's all. We go in our world of imagination, and we are amidst nature, and then we come back and shoulder our responsibilities on earth, because earth is the right place for love. And then we have cobwebs and twigs. These are basically the hardships of life, hardships of adult life, as Robert Frost over here faces. The cobweb can basically lash across your eye and there can be weeping. I've explained to you why weeping over here is used in the video of literary analysis. If you haven't checked it out, please go. Then we have both going and coming back. That is the need to have the mid path, the need to have both of these, imagination and reality. We need both of them. We don't just need imagination, we don't just need reality, we need both of them combined. At times reality, at times imagination. At times reality, at times imagination. That's all. Okay? And then, of course, I told you, black branches up a snow white trunk. We need to be grounded, we need to be rooted. And at the same time, climb the black branches up the snow white trunk. And never ever lose touch with reality and limits. Be within our limits in the real world, be within our limits in the imaginary world, and then climb the black branches of a snow white trunk. Go there, take a break, maintain your balance like the boy did. Take a break, be poised, and then with feet first, swishing down, flinging down, come and shoulder your responsibilities. And don't go immediately and come down. Go there, maintain a balance till the limit so that you don't bring the entire tree down, so that it trails on the ground. You don't have to do that. It's beautiful, I'm telling you. I hope you've got the symbols and I hope you've got the themes. The last thing that I want to discuss in this video is the title. It's a very, very appropriate title as far as the critics and I have to say. See, originally this poem was titled Swinging Birches, which somewhere or the other I feel gave a more appropriate and I say a more streamlined, appropriateness to the poem, a more streamlined aura to the poem, a more streamlined connotation was given to the poem because it was swinging birches. And in the entire poem, we just have swinging. We have the act of swinging, both literally and symbolically. Symbolically, why? Because swinging between reality and imagination, and literally because swinging from down to up and then coming down. Okay? But Robert Frost decided to name it Birches, his wish, not my poem. But yeah, the beauty is in the ambiguity as well. So, yep, Birches is the very appropriate title. And if you are asked the appropriateness of title, you can mention that originally the title was Swinging Birches, but then again Robert Frost named it Birches. And then how the entire poem revolves around birches. Then what birches are symbolic of? This will have to have a mention. What are birches after all symbolic of? Birches are symbolic of basically a vehicle that transports the person from reality to imagination. Because we are climbing the birches only, right? We are climbing the black branches of a snow white trunk. So this is a vehicle. It is a means of transportation that is taking us from reality to imagination. So birches are transporting us from reality to imagination. Then you can go on to elaborate what the prospect of swinging is, right? Both literally and symbolically, which I've told you just a while ago. That is there. And then finally we come to the cross references for this poem. Note them down. A poem by Philip Larkin, P-H-L-I-P, Philip, and L-A-R-K-I-N. Philip Larkin was the full name of the poet. He wrote a poem, The Trees, right? So that poem has the theme of nature. So whenever in your answer you come across writing about nature and you come across writing about birches and trees, you can give a passing reference to Philip Larkin's The Trees. You have it. Then you have a story by Jack Finney called The Third Level. Now what happens in this story is escapism plays a very vital role, right? One of the most prominent themes of this story by Jack Finney, which is The Third Level, is The Third Level, T-H-I-R-D, third, L-E-V-E-L, level, by Jack Finney, J-A-C-K, Jack, F-I-N-N-E-Y, Finney, Jack Finney. This is a story by Jack Finney which talks about escapism and which talks about imagination. Over here also, we talk about escapism. We need to escape to imagination and then come back to reality. In the same manner, the protagonist over here escaped to imagination. And then reality things, etc. happen. So whenever you are writing about imagination and you're writing about how we need to take a break, we need rather to take a break and go to imagination and come back, you can give a passing reference to Jack Finney's The Third Level. And then I would like to tell you this poem that we must have studied in class 7. I did it in class 7, which was The Palm Tree by Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, so Rabindranath Tagore's The Palm Tree talks of how the palm tree is grounded to the earth. Okay, it comes back ultimately to the earth only. It might have its wings in the form of leaves, but the palm tree is ultimately rooted to earth, to the ground. The birches are rooted to the ground, and that is where limits come into action, right? The imposition of limits take place, the ground. So yeah, those are the cross references. Certain questions like discuss the poem as it swings between imagination and reality. Well, I have already told you how the poem oscillates between imagination and reality. So let's, for example, take this particular question as as a reference. So discuss the poem as it swings between imagination and reality. How does the poem oscillate between imagination and reality? Our line of argument is that it does oscillate between and swing between um, imagination and reality, right? Now you can give instances from the poem itself. What are the instances? Instances are that initially it starts with imagination, which is the poet likes to think that some boy has been swinging them. Then it goes to reality, which is the ice storm thing. Then it comes back to imagination, which is the girls part, the girls on their hands and knees. Then it again goes back to reality, which is when truth breaks in. Okay, the truth comes in, the truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, right? Then again, reality. Then we come back to imagination because I prefer to have some boy swinging them, some boy far from town, okay, who had no access to baseball, etc., etc. That can be there. So this will be entire the layout of your answer. This shall be the layout of your answer, where you'll be talking about, where you yourself will be oscillating between imagination, reality, by taking evidences from the poem with cross references and quotations. They are a must. I can vouch for that. So yeah, with that, we have come to the end of the Birches. It is done and dusted. And next we will be beginning with We Are the Music Makers by Arthur William Edgar O'Shaughnessy. Until then, goodbye, good night, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever, and consider liking this channel if you can, and subscribing and sharing it with your friends and all. Goodbye.